I don't know what I want to say. I'm about to piss a lot of people off. Yeah, I'm not even gonna waste it. I'm just gonna do it. Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Jordan, and I'm here to teach you tips and tricks that I think will make your life easier on planet Earth. So today I'm doing a video that I'm a little scared to do, and in fact it's gonna be an entire series, and it's gonna be called the Toxicity series. And I personally have struggled severely with toxic people, toxic family members, toxic friends, toxic boyfriends. So today we're gonna focus on a specific topic of toxic friends, how to recognize them, what kind of traits does a toxic friend have, and then we're gonna talk about some ways that you can deal with this. I am terrified because I am about to piss a lot of people off. But I know that it's necessary, and I know that if you're watching this and you used to be a part of my life, then I hope that you've grown. I know that I have grown. I have also been a toxic friend, so I'm not saying this from a standpoint where I feel that I am better than anyone, but I have done a lot of personal work, a lot of therapy, and a lot of self-reflection to overcome my own afflictions. So while I'm stating some of these traits, some of them are things that I have personally overcome in my life, and some of them are things that I have dealt with my friends, and potentially some of the people watching this. So let's go. So one of the things I want to start by saying is that at some point we are all toxic, right? We have people in our lives that are toxic, and therefore that energy can spread out into the rest of our life, and it's like a poison. So one very toxic person, someone who makes you doubt yourself, someone who's not kind to you, these things can literally eat away and erode at your entire reality until you don't even recognize it anymore. So obviously this video is not gonna be long enough to go over all of the toxic traits, but I'm just gonna talk about some that I notice in my day-to-day life and in the lives of those around me. So one of the topics that I wanna talk about is one-sided relationships. Toxic relationships typically exist where one person is giving a lot and the other person is specifically just receiving or taking. Obviously, every relationship is going to be different, and from time to time, we all have to show up 100% when someone else can't carry the team. This is especially true in marriages, which is one of the reasons why I think that people around my age group have such a hard time having relationships, because we expect everyone to be perfect. And when a perfect life is just a swipe away, which we'll get more into in the dating series of toxic relationships, but friendships too, when you can just replace someone extremely easily, it becomes more challenging to find somebody who's going to have an equal give and take. So relationships can become one-sided, where there's one person who's always calling and maintaining the relationship, and another person is specifically just sitting there receiving and potentially being used for a multitude of reasons. So one of my best qualities as a person is I'm a very persuasive person. I would have been great in sales. I can pretty much talk and coerce anyone into doing pretty much anything. That being said, I operate from a standpoint of light, meaning every decision that I make, I actively ask myself, is this decision and the way I'm showing up for this person and in this person's life for the good of both of us? The reason I bring this up is because it's very, very important, person to person. If you have the ability to walk all over people and use them and manipulate them, and you know your capacity to persuade people, it becomes your personal ethical responsibility not to do so. In my personal life, one of my best friends, she's the nicest person you've ever met. And it is daily, I have to stop and say, am I doing this for the good of her and the good of myself? And you have to understand that some people just are kind. And as a manipulator, as someone who is potentially toxic, you meet people and we all know that person who would do literally anything for you. And when you're in a hard spot, it's your responsibility to put the fucking phone down. Like, don't call them. Be an adult, handle your shit. Like, there's times where you want to lean on that person and you know that it's not in their best interest. So you have to really check yourself as you're interacting with people who you know that you can manipulate. That makes you a good friend, right? Like, show up in people's lives and just be a good person. Don't take advantage of people's kindness. So let's talk about if you're the person who's easily manipulated. Most of you probably are. If you align to this video and you have toxic friends, you're probably the person who's being manipulated. So let's talk about how to recognize if that's the case. One of the things you're gonna feel when you're around someone who's toxic is you're gonna feel anxious. You're not gonna feel good. You might feel depressed. You might think negative things about yourself. One of the markers of a super toxic connection is when you leave, you feel incredibly drained. I know this is hard to hear for some of you because a lot of this is going to be family members. I know for myself, and we'll get into this in later videos, but my family is incredibly toxic. And so in friendships, it's a lot easier, right? We can just walk away from friendships, but family members and people that we're dating and sleeping with, it can be a lot harder to untangle yourself. But in friendships, if you feel bad around someone, that is your number one sign that you are being manipulated, and the person in your life is probably fairly toxic. Another sign is going to be if they can talk you into doing anything. We all have that boyfriend or that friend who, when they hang out with a specific group of people, we know they're going to be out all night. We know they're going to be hungover the next day. We know that we might get a call of them being arrested. If you have a group of friends that when you go and entertain the idea of hanging out with them, or when you're in their presence, you become someone else, that is a huge sign that these people are toxic. What that means is that you're not living in your authenticity. You're probably someone who's extremely impressionable, and therefore these people can take advantage of, manipulate, and talk you into doing just about anything. Also, everybody wants the nice friend around. People who can be manipulated are usually incredibly loving, loyal, complimentary. They're the best friends. So toxic people love that. Narcissists love empaths. Narcissists love people who are going to be around and just tell them that they're fabulous all the time. And these people, these empaths, they have a need to be needed. And therefore they're going to naturally gravitate towards those toxic people who carry the confidence, who seem to have it all figured out, because the empaths are somewhat shy and maybe a little bit more reserved, and they're literally on this planet just to make people feel good. So somebody who loves to be fed in that way is going to be naturally drawn towards someone who's extremely kind. Another sign of a toxic person that I want to talk about is when you feel uncomfortable when they're talking to someone that you're dating, or when you feel uncomfortable bringing them around other people. I've done a lot of research on this, and I've personally tried to explore toxic friends and signs and symptoms of toxic people. And this is one that I haven't personally read about yet, but it's one that I've personally experienced. So I believe that our intuition, our gut, we have emotions, okay? So when something makes you sick or anxious or you feel uncomfortable, that's your body yelling at you. So if you're bringing someone around a group of people and you're scared of what they're gonna say, what they're gonna do, how other people view them, that's probably someone who's toxic. You shouldn't be scared to bring people into your other world. This is also true if you have a friend that you feel you can't introduce to other friends. So if there's a specific group of people that you love to hang out with, but you know bringing this other person into it would be bad and misrepresent you, then don't do it. I have dated people like this, and I have had best friends like this where I would get invited to events and you know that you can't bring your best friend, or you know that you can't bring someone you're dating because you know that they would act a fool, or you just have zero clue how they're going to show up and represent you as a person. So we are the average of the people that we hang out with. And I hate that saying, because as I was elevating in my own personal and spiritual and career growth, I would get told that all the time. The people that surrounded me were incredibly toxic, and it led me to be incredibly toxic. Some of you watching this probably know exactly what I'm talking about. The life that I'm in now, you maybe wouldn't know how toxic my lifestyle used to be. And this is something that I'll be very open with as I grow and as my following grows. But toxic people made me a toxic person, and I participated in toxic behaviors. And so then when I elevated and I healed, my life was filled with people who were completely out of alignment with who I was, what I believed in, where I was going, and I had to sadly cut them out, and it was very lonely. But now my life is being filled one by one with really yummy, incredible people. And when you start to feel what your life is like, once you get awesome friends, you will never go back. I think it's similar to how you feel after you start dating amazing people, right? When you're only used to being abused, and then you get into the relationship of your dreams, and then someone is cherishing you, and they call you every day, and they hold you, and they're kind to you, you realize how much you were actually starving. So this is going to lead into another topic of, in order to escape this pattern, you're going to have a lot of bravery. Part of this is going to be hard for codependent people, because as a recovering codependent myself, you have a self-love deficit, meaning you don't think that you are that amazing. You spend most of your time looking for your validation from other people, places, things, substances, and this can lead you into a really dark spiral where manipulators, abusers, and narcissists will completely take advantage of you. So one of the best things you can do for this is get into therapy immediately. I resisted therapy for a long time, and I'm really sad that I did because I lost a lot of years of my life. And again, many of you watching this have probably witnessed me go through this transition, and now you can see me in this space. The only reason I got here was one, a lot of self-reflection on what type of person I wanted to be, and then making a list of qualities I will not tolerate. Meaning if I see this in a new friendship, I'm out. Because toxic people are master manipulators, it's gonna be somewhat challenging for you to remove them. So the best advice that I have is slow and steady. Hi, kitty. Typically, these manipulators, narcissists, they know you like the back of their hand. They know how to manipulate you. They know your weak spots. They know what makes you cringe. They know what makes you angry. They know what makes you scared. They know what makes you feel alone. So you coming at them, creating a boundary, it might actually do more harm than good. So my advice is slowly, calmly, and steadily start taking steps backwards away from this friendship. This doesn't mean blocking. This doesn't mean deleting. Just actively start to become more scarce. There are things that you can say. For instance, in my life, one of the things that I said was, I'm practicing sobriety. I no longer would like to be around people that have been present when I have abused my body and or substances and or alcohol. This has done a really, really, really good job in my life of setting a very clear boundary. There are people in my life that I used to drink with and that I used to party with that are still present, but they are the people who do not encourage me to participate in any behaviors that are toxic for me, and they are 100% supportive of me in the middle of a night out as much as they are in the middle of the afternoon. So if you have friends that only function after midnight on certain nights, like someone you would never go to breakfast with, those are not your friends. Those are toxic people. You have to get them out of your life. A lot of the clients that I coach, when they're asking me about their money energy and their life and what to do to get to the next step, the first step is realizing you deserve a better life. The second step is taking the steps that it is required of you to get to the end result. If you're watching this video and you're feeling a little triggered because maybe you have some of the qualities that were mentioned, I don't want you to be too hard on yourself, because recognizing and awareness is the first step to healing. A lot of the traits that I mentioned earlier, I actually know from personal experience of me living in a space where I represented this person in other people's lives. Part of healing and part of spiritual growth and part of being a good person is recognizing your own wounds, the ways in which you hurt and harm other people, and having empathy and compassion for the things that you've done. There are people in my life, potentially ones watching this, who I have apologized to for things that I've done, and you can too. So this is where therapy comes in handy. We are only as good as the tools that were given to us. So just like me, I was raised in an extremely abusive household. I didn't know how to properly be someone's friend. I didn't understand one-sided relationships. I'd only ever been in one-sided relationships with my parents and in my upbringing. And so when you've never experienced true unconditional love, you typically can show up somewhat toxic. And so if this is something that you're struggling with, you can totally reach out to me and we can have a further discussion about it. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Please hit subscribe below if you want to see my content in the future, or you can find me on Instagram at Brittany Beauty. I also do one-on-one coaching if anyone is interested in scheduling a session with me so we can break through some of those things that are holding you back. In addition, we will have more of the Toxicity series coming up: toxic family members, manipulators, and toxic boyfriends. So stay tuned.